everybody. We are live, live, live. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. So, essentially, what I want to do today is I want to try something a little different. That's why the background is not my traditional general background. I want to try something a little different. So, rather than doing my traditional sort of Q&A sort of a thing, and my informational sort of thing, I want to try something a little different. I figure I would try to take a look at some of the alternative news stories that are out there, but still try to keep it within the brand of the Mystical Rebel and what I do here. So essentially taking a look at alternative news stories that sort of have to do with either the New Age, the paranormal, or the occult conspiracy communities. And so I figure we would take a look at certain news articles from the perspective of the occult, sort of kind of try something different, shake things up a little bit, rather than just do the standard Q&A and informational sort of lives that I give normally. I figure I try something a little different. So I want to try this news thing out, see if you guys like it. Excuse me. And if so, we'll continue to do more of these. But I figure I'll take a look at some alternative news articles and sort of give my perspective on it and see if we can sort of analyze it from an occult, esoteric, or a mystical perspective. So, excuse me. I figure for the first article, we'll take a look here. Comes to us from Live Science, as you can see up here. This is from 4 days ago. It says 76 child sacrifice victims with their hearts ripped out found in Peru excavation. This is from Live Science. This is from 4 days ago. And as you can see in the picture up there, that's a aerial shot, or what's known in the film industry as God's eye, a God's eye shot of about half a dozen or so of the skeletal remains of 76 children. And I'm going to go ahead and read the article here. It says, the remains of dozens of child sacrifice victims have been unearthed in Peru, and many more are likely waiting to be found, archaeologists say. The skeletons show evidence that the children's hearts were removed, said Gabriel Prieto, an assistant professor of anthropology at the University of Florida, who directs the excavations at Pampa La Cruz, the site near Huanchaco, where the remains were found. All 76 skeletons had a transversal clean cut across the sternum, Prieto said, which suggests that they possibly opened up the rib cage and then they possibly extracted the heart. They were buried on an extended position with the feet towards the east, Prieto told Live Science in an email. They were buried on top of an artificial mound. It's not clear why the sacrifices were located in this position. We thought that the area, and particularly the mound, was free of Chimu child sacrifices, but we found the opposite. And then it goes on to say that excavations have been underway at Pampa La Cruz for several years. So far, 323 child sacrifice victims have been found at the site, and another 137 child and 3 adult sacrifice victims were found at a nearby site, Cos Las Lamas. These remains also showed that the children's hearts had been removed. So it appears to me, whatever sort of they haven't said, at least in this article, how old they believe these skeletons to be. So we don't know if this is something that was done like in the last 50 years or, the last 500 years. But it seems to me that whoever, whatever group, whatever cult or whatever sect or whatever in Peru did this, it seems that the heart would have been a sacred item for them, for they would remove it before presenting the mainly children, but it looks like there was at least three adults, mainly children, before they would be presented to their deities for sacrifice. So they don't name the group that they, I guess, maybe they don't even know, did this. But whoever it was, it seems that the heart has a significant place in their religion or their cult or whatever it is that you want to call it. And it seems that for some reason they felt as though their deities were angry with them. I mean, that's hundreds of children and only three adults. So usually when children are sacrificed in ancient cultures, it's usually for appeasement, and it's usually to sort of turn, a god's anger into favor. So that way, your crops can grow or you can become fertile or whatever. So that's what it appears here. But let's see if there's anything else here. Why were the children sacrificed? Scholars who were not involved in the excavations told Live Science that the finds at Huancacho are important. While other cases of child sacrifices are known in the Andean area, what is striking here is the scale, of course. Peter Eckhout, a professor of pre-Columbian art and archaeology at the Université Libre du Bruges in Belgium, told Live Science in an email. Why the child sacrifices were carried out is difficult to tell, Eckhout said, noting that this writing was not used in Peru at this time, and thus there are no written records detailing the youngsters' deaths. Problems with climate or environmental changes may have disrupted agriculture in the area and could have played a role in the sacrifice. So essentially what I was saying, it seems to be some sort of a appeasement for some sort of a deity. And it seems that it may have been simply for crops. Simply so the crops can grow. We need to sacrifice hundreds of children. And I mean, I'm sure this was done, over time. I'm sure it wasn't, all at once. I'm sure those children were sacrificed over a long period of time, rather than just one giant mass sacrifice. But who knows? I'm not a part of any ancient culture or anything like that. But I do find that interesting. That there it is. That they keep finding these sorts of mass graves, even in places where, like this article said, that they thought that such things didn't happen in that region, in that area. But it seems that we're finding that no matter where you go in the world, human sacrifice was practiced by ancient cultures for various reasons. So very interesting. Let me just take a look at the chat here. What's going on, guys? Welcome. Why do they believe these are sacrifices? Well, I think it's due to the number. I mean, it's one thing if it's a couple of children with all the same, mark and the heart removed, but I guess due to the sheer number. I mean, I guess the only other option it could be is a serial killer, but they were all buried at the same site. Excuse me. Usually, if you're like a serial killer or something like that, unless it's on your own property, chances are you use multiple spots to bury them in. If they're concentrated in one area, smells could start to happen. Animals could be a problem, so it might be best to spread them out unless you own the property that you're going to be burying your victims on. So I think that would most likely be the reason why they would have thought it was a child sacrifice over anything else. Being that, everyone had the same laceration on their chest, with their ribs opened up, and which is, I guess how you would reach in without going directly in from the chest to get the heart. So that's the only thing I can think of, since it doesn't specifically say. why they thought that it was a child sacrifice. The heart could have been removed after a natural death as a keepsake. That is possible. That's very possible. I'm not sure why they think. Yeah, it doesn't really. Yeah, it doesn't really say. So I am not sure. Hail Satan. Sure. If that's what you like to do, we don't do that around here. But sure, sure, sure. What's good, Slime? What's going on, man? Welcome, welcome. We love nothing. We fear nothing. What do you mean by that? Hello, hello, Cat W24. Welcome, welcome. All right, so let's go move on to the next article here. 1 second. All right, there we go. All right, so the next article is Easter Island statues suffer irreparable damage in a fire. This was from last Friday, Friday, October 7th, 2022. So there's an image there of a few of the Maoi, I don't know how to pronounce it, Maoi statues that have been irreparably damaged in a fire that affected Easter Island. The article states a wildfire on Easter Island has caused irreparable damage to some of its iconic stone-carved statues, according to authorities. The blaze, which is being treated as arson, so they apparently think that this wasn't like a natural thing, someone started this, totally charred a number of the famous figures known as Moi. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but Moai. After sweeping across more than 100 hectares, or for us Americans, 247 acres, around the Rano Raraku volcano, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So they believe that someone intentionally set fire to Easter Island, or not to the whole island, but to the area where this Maoi was. And then it goes on to say that Easter Island, which lies some 2,174 miles off the coast of Chile, is home to around 1,000 of the ancient statues carved by the indigenous Rapa Nui people more than 500 years ago. Archaeologists discovered in recent years that the oversized heads had bodies buried underground. The size of each moai varies significantly in height, with some standing up to 33 feet tall, although the average height is 13 feet. The blaze was started deliberately, according to the mayor of Easter Island, Pedro Edmonds. The damage caused by the fire can't be undone. The National Parks Director, Ariki Tepano, described the damage as irreparable and added the moai, or however you say it, are totally charred, and you can see the effects of the fire on them. The area has been shut down to visitors while an investigation is carried out. The blaze comes just 3 months after the island was reopened to tourism on August 5th after 2 years of closure due to COVID-19. Prior to the pandemic, Easter Island, where the main industry is tourism, attracted some 160,000 visitors per year, and that's basically it. So yeah, someone deliberately set fire to Easter Island and damaged a lot of, if not almost all of these statues, to the point where they're almost unrecognizable. They just look like giant burned rocks. I mean, some of them I can't even tell used to be like Maoi heads or whatever. Some of them I can, but some of them just look like giant charred rocks. So yeah, I should have taken screenshots of like all these photos so that way you guys can see the damage. But you can find it on Sky News, as you can see up there. Sky News. This was on Friday, October 7th, so it's recently. It's under World News. You should be able to find it if you're interested in seeing all the images of the damage that was done. But someone did it on purpose. So somebody purposely wanted to damage those statues I wonder. I wonder why. I wonder for what reason would someone want to damage these statues? Like I doubt it was like a kid or like a teenager or teenagers plural, just ha ha. Or I doubt it was someone a tourist smoking a cigarette and flicked it and it caused all that. Um, that's a little interesting. I don't know why someone would do that, but that's because I wouldn't do it. So, um, what if the heart was used to prevent plague? You mean like the heart itself was used as like an additional sacrifice or offering? Excuse me. Or like, do you mean like the heart was like used in some kind of a potion or a balm or a salve, some sort of like a medicinal herbal thing? Um, is that what you mean, brother Eric? They don't have security, bro. I don't know. I've never really been to Easter Island, and I mean, no one can. Well, I mean, I guess you can deface them. So I was gonna say, like, what would you need security for if you can't really steal these giant heads with bodies attached to them underground? But I guess you can deface them. You can carve pieces off of them. You can, So I mean, I guess you still would need security so people don't, graffiti it or spray paint or draw, obscene images on them. Um, yeah, maybe they should get some security, especially if it's a national park. Um, National parks, usually, at least in America, have rangers. I mean, I don't know about. I don't know who owns Easter Island. It says it's 2,000 miles off the coast of Chile, so I doubt it's Chile, but maybe it is Chile. They have a mayor, so I don't know who. So I don't know. Obviously, it's owned by some country, but I don't know who owns that. Tourists are ecological and spiritual disasters. Bet it was a local. That would suck. That would suck if it was a local. It's because if anyone understands the importance and the significance of those heads, it would be a local. So that would definitely suck. Heart used to transfer strength between people in a potion or a bomb. Okay, all right, I can see that. It would just suck that they had to kill someone like for it. Yeah, I would suggest, if you had to go that route, I would suggest going after someone who had recently passed. But see, within occultism, um, especially the darker stuff, it's the live parts that people are after, which is why dead blood doesn't really work in offerings and a sacrifice. You need fresh blood. So I mean, if that's the case for blood, I would assume it's also the case for hearts and livers and anything else that some dark magician would use for whatever evil purposes they need it for. Um, but yeah, anyway, before we move on to the next one, cruise ships visiting probably polluting the fishing areas. Huh, perhaps. That is perhaps. I think they use the victims. Do you believe in psychic mediums? I do not believe in psychic mediums. At least not in the new age one. I caught you. What's going on, Paxton? Welcome. Glad to have you. Glad to have you. We're trying out a new format here. We're doing alternative news segments, going over alternative news and giving like sort of like an esoteric or occult perspective, sort of trying to change it up from just the regular question and answer type of a thing. But all right, let's go ahead and move on to the next news article here. All right, so this is from The Atlantic. Let me pull it up on my. All right, there we go. So scientists can no longer ignore ancient flooding tales. This is from today, actually, today, October 10th, 2022, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time at The Atlantic. So it says, indigenous stories from the end of the last ice age could be more than just a myth. By Chris Bariniuk. How do you say that? Sorry, Chris. It wasn't long after Henry David Inglis arrived on the island of Jersey, just northwest of France, that he heard the old story. Locals eagerly told the 19th century Scottish travel writer how, in a bygone age, their island had been much more substantial, and that folks used to walk to the French coast. The only hurdle to their journey was a river, one easily crossed using a short bridge. Pah! Inglis presumably scoffed as he looked across the 22 kilometers of shimmering blue sea between Jersey and the French coast, because he went on to write in his 1834 book about the region that this was an assertion too ridiculous to merit examination. About 150 years earlier, another writer, Jean Bouin d'Estrées, had been similarly unmoved by the tale. No one could have trod from Jersey to Normandy, he withered. Vinless, it's where, I don't know why I guess that's what it really said. Vinless, Vnlesse. Vinless, it were before the flood, referring to the Old Testament cataclysm. Yet, there had been a flood, a big one, between roughly 15,000 and 6,000 years ago. Massive flooding caused by melting glaciers raised sea levels around Europe. That flooding is what eventually turned Jersey into an island. I was not aware of that. Very interesting. Rather than being a ridiculous claim not worthy of examination, perhaps the old story was true. A whisper from ancestors who really did walk through now vanished lands. A whisper that has echoed across millennia. So that's interesting that, that people, local legend in that region of France, and, the Jersey Islands, and I'm sure the Channel Islands and stuff like that, had stated that, there had been a flood, and that there was a time where people could travel between, I'm guessing, what was it, Jersey and Normandy? I've never been to France, so I don't know. As much as I've traveled, never been to Europe. So I don't know what that looks like, but I'm guessing, since Jersey is an island, there's obviously water between Jersey and, I'm guessing, France, or Normandy, which is in France, yeah. So I'm guessing people could walk across that at some point. But then there was a flood, apparently. The ancient, or not the ancient, it looks like a few authors who went to that area for inspiration to write didn't believe it. And, oh, nope, sorry. I don't, why do I always get the invites to the game? I don't want to play the game. Where was I? So yeah, I find it interesting here. Let's see here. Uh, Here we go. That's exactly what geographer Patrick Nunn and historian Margaret Cook at the University of the Sunshine Coast in Australia. That's a crazy. The University of the Sunshine Coast. That that has to be an awesome place to work. In Australia, have proposed in a recent paper. In their work, the pair describe colorful legends from northern Europe and Australia that depict rising waters, peninsulas becoming islands, and receding coastlines during that period of deglaciation thousands of years ago. Some of these stories, the researchers say, capture historical sea level rises that actually happened, often thousands of years ago. For scholars of oral history, that makes them geomyths. So that's very interesting, because, of course, we all know plenty of religions talk about worldwide floods. Some of them are referring to the biblical flood, others are referring to floods that came after that, that may not have flooded the entire world, but flooded regions of the world. Um, so it's very interesting that science is now starting to catch up to that, because, as you can say, scientists can. Oh my God. Now two people. I've never seen this. Texas Woman 32 and Lindsay Nicole are both inviting me to join their game. No. I've never seen two people at the same time. That's very interesting. But anyway, so yeah, it's very interesting that scientists are starting to catch up. Uh, let's see here. Do you believe in the devil? Like the Christian devil? Not in that way. I do believe in evil forces and evil beings, but I don't believe in like a like an evil force that's like tempting you to commit sins and stuff like that. So I was scrolling and heard someone say, "I'm the most trustworthy medium," and I instantly skipped. Well, I'm glad you skipped that. That's I'm the most trustworthy medium. Stop it. I heard Easter Island was an example of mud floods also. Huh, interesting. Yeah, I don't know much about Easter Island or anything like that. So I can't say. I mean, I've heard of Easter Island. I know what it is, but like I haven't done like super research on it. Like a lot of these conspiracy theorists do. And with all their research, they come up with nothing. It's all a bunch of nonsense. So yeah, too many cultures have a flood myth for it to be made up. I agree. I agree. And there's historical evidence as scientists are as they're finding out. There's historical evidence of these floods. So yeah, I completely agree. There's too many stories, and the stories are too similar. It's insane. The last ice age, the sea level would have been much lower. Imagine a sudden heat source melting uh, lots of it. Yeah, uh, I wouldn't be able to imagine a flood happening right now, or in our world, or anything like that. Um, yeah, I wouldn't be able to even fathom anything like that. Wow, so Noah's flood did happen? I do believe so. I do believe so. I don't know. Like I agree with Alderici. I don't know if it was Noah's flood, but I do believe that there was a a uh, a deluge. I do believe that there was a deluge. Hey man, how are you? What's going on, Drain J? Welcome, welcome, welcome to the live. We're trying something different out. Drain J, excuse me. We're trying out a new segment where instead of doing my general Q&A, which I'm still doing as you can see, but instead of the entire live being about that, or instead of me giving instructions on how to do something, I figured try something different and get like alternative news that have to do with like the paranormal or the new age or the occult conspiracy. Talk about them, and sort of give my perspective as closely as I can to an esoteric or a mystical or an occult perspective. Um, so we're just trying that out. This is trial numero uno, seeing if you guys like it. Doesn't seem like there's any complaints so far. But we'll see how the rest of the live goes. But yeah, this is we're trying something new out, Drain J. So that's what that is behind me. We're doing alternative news. I have 5 articles for the trial here, just to see how you guys like it. And if it's a success, we'll do them in the future. Reminds me of Pikatrix. Really? What reminds you of the Pikatrix? Um, the flood, or um, what exactly reminds you of the Pikatrix? Is the Epic of Gilgamesh a copy of Noah's Ark? I don't know if it's a copy of Noah's Ark. I would say it's a retelling of other flood tales. I don't know if Noah's Ark is the preeminent flood tale. It's the most popular due to Christianity's popularity, but um, I'm saying they all come from the same event. Oh, you're talking to Alderici, okay? All right. Off topic, but man, I have to thank you for the Seven Spheres recommendations. Best thing I've taken into practice. Good. I'm glad you're practicing. That's the most important thing. Thank you for the compliment, but it's the fact that you're practicing is my real my real thanks and my real compliment. It's one thing to read the book and to just take it all in, but it's another thing to actually start working with it and starting to try to incorporate a kingdom in your world as the book instructs. Oh, excuse me. So good. I'm glad you're practicing. Continue. Keep going. Saturn will be your hardest, and Mars, and probably Mercury, due to I found Mercury very hard to navigate. Maybe that was just me, but anyway, that's not important. Keep going. I like the desk and mic thing, and hell yeah, seems awesome so far. Loving it. Something fresh. Thank you very much. Good. I'm glad. I'm glad you're liking it. And yeah, I was going to do the green screen that I normally do for the debates, but I was like, I don't want to have to keep like always moving my, I mean, I do it somewhat in this, but and then I thought about using the one where it's just the square up here and that's me, and then the rest of the background is the image. But when I tried that, it was too zoomed in and you couldn't read any of it. It was like you would only be able to see Ken no longer, and it was like no. So this seems to be the best. Excuse me. Excuse me. A flood event happened. Some were saved, whether by higher entities or luck. How do you feel that most Western occult is based off of white consumerism and not traditional practice? That's modern Western occultism. That's not Western occultism at large. That's modern day Western occultism. So Western occultism that was published in the last 20, maybe 30 years, unless you want to count like pop magic of the 70s and 80s, like chaosophy and stuff like that. But if you truly do mean like Western esotericism, that's mainly just in the last 20, maybe 30 years. Most of the texts and stuff before that weren't written to sell books. They weren't written to be popular. They weren't written for a Gen Z short attention span audience. They were written for practicing magicians and scholars. Yeah, that's only the stuff within the last 20 to 30 years. The paperback books that are easily purchased on Amazon, or you can walk into your local Barnes and Noble and get them. The books for $12.99, $14.99, $19, those books. So yes, I do acknowledge that, but it's only the stuff within the last 20 to 30 years. And if you know anything about my content, you know that I actually prefer to recommend books prior to that. Most of the books that I recommend people read, I openly admit, are boring. They're dry. They're not for the masses. They're not meant to sell 10,000 copies. The author probably didn't care if he sold any copies. He was just trying to get the information out there. Most of the books that I recommend are published like in the early 1900s, 1800s, stuff like that. So prior to all of this consumerism and non-traditional practice. That's only the stuff within the last 20 to 30 years for the most part. Absolutely, the kingdom part is really amazing part. Absolutely, the kingdom part of it is really an amazing part that's helping so damn much. Good. I am glad. I'm glad that you like it. It's the fact that you're practicing. That's what really makes my day, is like you're actually practicing. I'm not saying he's definitely wrong. I'm saying he's not definitely right. Agreed. No human is definitely right. Have you ever seen other entities? Other than what? Other than what do you mean other entities? Like I've seen entities, yes, but you said other entities. Other than what? Have you noticed that the bookstores don't carry occult books 1800s or 1900s? Of course, I've noticed that. Yeah. Why would they? Those books don't sell. That makes my point. The modern day books are designed to sell. They're designed for consumerism. That's why out of a book of 200 pages, 30 pages might be useful, practical information. The rest of it is fluff and filler. That's why I really respect publishers like Hadean Press, who, while they do publish the 200-page books and the 300-page books and 180-page books, whatever, they also publish something known as guides to the underworld, where those same authors who are used to publishing the 200-page books or whatever, they get to only present the usable information. And instead of selling it in a $50, $100, $120, 200-page book, they sell it in a little 15-page pamphlet because it only contains the practical, useful information rather than all the fluff and the filler. So I respect publishers like that, like Scarlet Imprint, like Anathema, that offer these smaller guides and things like that. Okay, before we continue with any of that, let's move on to the next news article. Don't want to lose sight of the new format here. We only got 2 more. I only have 5 articles for the trial here. All right. I'm sorry, the live goal and the gifts, at least on my screen, I don't know if you guys can see it, but right here, there's a new gifts for you. Now it says go live with more guests. And then right here, it says add live goal. So it might be blocking a bit of the title here, but essentially it says when Arthur, or excuse me, when Sir Arthur Conan Doyle opened a psychic bookstore. That's what it says. When Sir Arthur Conan Doyle opened a psychic bookstore. This is from October 5th, 2022. So from 5 days ago. And this is on Mental Floss. You can see up there if you're interested in checking out the article yourself. It states, a considerable mess greeted the station sergeant who peered into London's The Psychic Bookshop in the early morning hours of February 6, 1928. I have a few books from that year. Books and papers had been pulled from shelves and tossed onto the floor. Drawers had been ransacked. Someone had burglarized the premises. More importantly, someone had burglarized the pride and joy of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, England's renowned creator of Sherlock Holmes. His bookstore wasn't focused on crime fiction, but on spiritual arcana. The author was a firm believer in the unexplained and the mystical, insisting it was possible to communicate with the dead. His belief was so strong that he spent some of his fortune and a time later in his life creating his spiritual bookstore, which he once proclaimed was his most important mission, though he apparently didn't have the precognitive power to see the theft coming. So that's interesting because in addition to this bookstore, I know that he was a member of this, I guess it was like a library, but it was more than a library. It was like a secret library where a bunch of prominent people at that time, so like the 1920s and stuff like that, so like mainly people in the entertainment industry, if you can call it an industry back then, people who were in the arts, people who were creative. It wasn't like politicians or like prominent business people. Sure, I'm sure there were people who were wealthy there who were also entertainers, but it was mainly entertainers. And they would meet at like this bookstore that, or like this library that delved into a lot of the metaphysical, the supernatural, the psychic, the mystical, the occult, and it was a lot of these well-known artists and writers and musicians and things like that. It was in London. I don't think it exists anymore, and maybe it doesn't. It just went further underground. But this was like some sort of I forgot what it was called, but it was like a semi-secret society, only for like like-minded artists, and, the bourgeois of society. So it's interesting that he had his own little piece of that, I guess, if you will. So I'm going to skip the paragraph where it gives like a history of him, like, oh, he was born in Edinburgh. Oh, he was a doctor? I didn't know that. He was an actual doctor. He got his medical degree. He was an ophthalmologist. And it was after that he turned to writing with an emphasis on the deductive Holmes character. He used to be a doctor, which actually that's not too interesting because I said, I don't know if it was in the live this morning or the last live where I had mentioned that a lot of no, I think it was the live this morning. I had mentioned that in times past, mainly from like medieval times through the end of the Renaissance, when certain esoteric schools of thought were part of a regular college curriculum, there were a lot of scientists and a lot of doctors who were also occultists as a hobby or on the side where they made side income doing it. You'd be surprised at how many people that you learned about in like school, and you were taught that they invented this and that, and they probably did, but they were also occultists or alchemists or Kabbalists or astrologers on the side. People who you were taught were these logical, science-minded people were also trying to find the elixir of life or trying to plan their life according to the stars. And you'd be very surprised to find out who was into occult things. Like Darwin, Newton, these people were all into I can't say that they were all occult, but they were into like the esoteric and the mystical side of things. Um, okay, so anyway, I said I was going to skip that part. The success of Holmes allowed Doyle to indulge in his interests in spiritualism and psychic phenomena, a curiosity that had been stirred earlier in his life after he and a friend indulged in a thought transference experiment. Drawing on a piece of paper that was hidden from his friend's view, Doyle was amazed to see his associate draw similar figures. Though he once described himself as a skeptic and spiritualism as the greatest nonsense, Doyle became a believer and eventually convinced himself it was possible to communicate with the dead. So I find this interesting because he was a skeptic. But now, of course, this was a different time where you didn't have YouTube videos and a bunch of random books on Amazon to peruse through. But he did what you're supposed to do. He didn't believe it, but rather than expect everyone else to do the work for him, are you listening, Ethan Kaiser? That guy, who's going around, challenging witch talk to, oh, curse me, curse me. Are you listening? If you want to find out if magic is real, you have to do it for yourself. That's what Arthur Conan Doyle did. He didn't expect other people to do it for him. He didn't go, oh, you can talk to spirits, prove it to me. He decided to take it amongst himself. Now, it could be because he's a doctor, so he's scientifically trained. So his mind operates like that. His mind probably operates like, well, I'm going to test it out for myself and see if it works. Most people aren't scientifically trained, so most people don't think like that. I understand that. But the way he did it is the way it should be done. If you don't believe it, try it out. See what happens. You might be surprised. He tried it out. He didn't believe. He was a doctor. He didn't believe. He tried it, and he's like, oh, wow. Now, I don't know the methods that he used. I can't verify if he was doing, anything valid or not, but he tried something out, and he astonished himself. Doyle became a believer and eventually convinced himself it was possible to communicate with the dead. In 1917, he published an article in the Metropolitan magazine titled in part, My Conversion to Spiritualism. Losing both a son and a brother and a son. I think that's a mistake. I think it's both a brother and a son, or a son and a brother, not a son and a brother and a son. In 1918 and 1919, respectively, it likely strengthened how he felt about connecting with the deceased. Apparently, from the spirit messages which I received, we are in this world chiefly for the purposes of self-improvement, he told reporter H.C. Norris in 1925. Our aim is the angels, and when we become like them, or rather when we become angels ourselves, we enter heaven, which is many miles above the earth, in what we know as the seventh or outer sphere. Wow, he's talking a lot of hermetics there. And the becoming an angel, I think he's referencing without knowing it. I'm quite sure he did not know how to properly interpret the messages he was receiving. And I do believe he was receiving something because it checks out with occultism, esotericism, and mysticism. It's not something that you can't pull stuff like that from your ass. At least not without having immense knowledge yourself. So it sounds like when he's talking about we become like them, or rather we become angels, I think he's talking about the hermetic merging with your holy daemon or your holy guardian angel, where you become a son of God. And he's talking about the spheres, and he's saying that we enter heaven, which is many miles above the earth, and which is known as the seventh or the outer sphere. So the fact that he knows that there are 7 spheres, and that the spheres aren't they're the planets, but we call them spheres. Like that's actually what we call them, and that heaven exists either in the 7th sphere or outside of that, which he did say the 7th or the outer sphere. So the fact that he would know that, I mean, that's without saying it is extremely close to hermetics. It goes on to mention how Doyle and Harry Houdini were friends, and they performed a seance by Doyle's second wife. I guess it sounds like he was trying to win Harry Houdini's confidence over by trying to contact Harry Houdini's wife, Harry Houdini's mother, who had passed. But it looks like Harry Houdini was not into it. He wasn't convinced. He was like, I'm a stage magician. This other stuff is either nonsense or it's scaring me, so he was out. Um, let's see here. It goes on to mention how in 1925, Arthur Conan Doyle sent a letter to the spiritualist magazine called Light, announcing his plans for a repository of literature relating to the subject of psychic phenomena and metaphysics. He was touting its location in one of the most central positions in London, and he insisted that the shop would resolve the complete disconnection between the unknown world and the average person on the street, which I think is what the New Age tries to do, but they fail miserably. That was my little side quip that wasn't in the article. Um, yeah, this is a really long article, so I'm not going to continue with the rest of this. But I do find that interesting, that he had, not only this library or this bookstore, but he was also a member of a similar secret society. And also, he started out as a skeptic. He came into this thing as a skeptic, and he, on his own, discovered that it was real. He didn't have anyone convince him or anything like that. He took it into his own hands and convinced himself that it's valid, which is what I suggest everyone do. So, all right. Wow. These five took me almost an hour. Wow, I was not expecting that. We have one more to get through, but let me get through some of these questions here. I think I sort of like this. Read an article, do some questions. Read an article, do some questions. Let's see here. Have you noticed that I already read that. I remember you could find them in bookstores easily. I don't remember that, but we might be from different eras. But as someone who used to peruse occult bookshops when I was a teenager, I don't ever recall seeing many older books, at least not anything before like the 70s in the bookstores. Now, in like antique bookstores, or there's a Masonic bookstore in a historic town in my state. But outside of places like that, I personally don't recall seeing any older books in any bookstores. But again, we might be from different eras. So any new occult books you've had your eye on? The only one that I've had my eye on is what's it called? The Orphic Grimoire or something like that. I think that's coming out. I think that's either Anathema or Hadean is coming out with that. And then there is a book. I think this is also by Hadean or Anathema on female mystics. We don't really get a lot of outside of paganism. We don't really get a lot of divine feminine anything. Excuse me. So it's a book about some of the female mystics in the Abrahamic tradition, because they don't get any real love. So those two are the only ones I've had my eye on lately, and I'm subscribed to a lot of the publishers' newsletters. Lately, Anathema has really been the only one sending anything new out. Doesn't look. At least for me, maybe I'm missing them or they're going to my spam folder. But Anathema seems to be the only one putting it, and Mark Allen Smith. But he keeps reprinting his old stuff. It's like, come on, we're waiting for volume 3 in the. We're waiting for volume 2 on the Ars Diaboli series. So. Anyway, and I also watch Foolish Fish and his news publishing stuff on YouTube, and I haven't seen anything lately. Hold on, my phone's at 9%, and we still have another article to get through. Where's my charger? Is this it? I think this is it. Yeah, this is it. Oh my god, hold on. It's like tangled around this one. Ooh. Alright. Come on. There we I've seen occult books in Barnes and Noble, but 99% are very basic and watered down. Yes. There are some good ones in there. I promise you, most of them are going to be from Llewellyn. Most of them will have that little moon, half moon, the crescent moon on the side. It'll be from Llewellyn. They're the biggest, largest occult publisher in the world, or at least in the Western Hemisphere. Can't speak for like China or Russia or something, but in the West, they're the biggest occult publisher. So most of the books that you're going to get, at least at Barnes and Noble, in the occult section, or even like your local bookstore, is going to be from Llewellyn. So they're going to be paperback and they're going to be watered down. Llewellyn does have some good books, but yeah. What about books and practices, especially towards East Asian Hindu Sanskrit being out of context? I don't study anything from the East other than Tao of the Left and a bit of Tantric Conjure. Do you believe in a Messiah figure coming back to save the world? No, I do not. Thank you for the roses. Like 6 to 7 main chakras being a rainbow and something you can change. Interestingly, the recent Nobel Prize leads to questions regarding reality, especially the malleable nature and spooky action at a distance. Do you mean, I'm sure a lot of people recently got a Nobel Prize, but do you mean Benjamin Booyah Bernanke? Do you mean Booyah Bernanke and his Nobel Prize in economics or whatever it was? Booyah Bernanke? I think I had an epiphany regarding Tesla's free wireless power today. I don't know anything about Tesla's free wireless power, or free wireless power. It's a riff off of a crystal radio, which is amplitude modulation. I don't know anything about that. Is astrology real? Yes, it's real. Plenty of it's probably the world's oldest science. Yes, it's real. But remember, astrology is correlation, not causation. Correlation. There are certain planetary alignments, certain star alignments, certain planetary movements and formations that when those alignments and formations and movements happen, certain events happen. And we can trace this back throughout history because you can map. I mean, the planets only move in a certain way. The stars only move in a certain way. They're not randomly moving around. So it's very easy to chart where they're going to go and where they've been. And you can look back in history and see during certain placements, major events would happen around the world, like wars or economic downturn or economic upturn or whatever. Regime change and a cultural change, a societal change, whatever. You can see that certain events happened all throughout history during certain, and so at some point you have to ask yourself, okay, when does it stop being a coincidence and when does it start becoming correlated? So yes, I would say astrology is very real. In the seance, Arthur wrote pages in English, but Houdini mom didn't speak it. Oh, so you're familiar with that. Interesting. Very, very nice. Very nice. What is the path to apotheosis in Hermetics? The chain of manifestation. In Kabbalah, you would know it probably as the path of return, going back through the spheres. So if you, I'm sure you're probably trying to test me or something like that. So if you know how a soul leaves the mind of God and travels down through the fixed stars and then down through the 7 planets down to Earth first through the elements and then Earth to materialize in a human form, reverse that process, and that's essentially back. Not apotheosis. Apotheosis is man becoming God. Do you mean theosis, returning to God? Because apotheosis is a very either Gnostic or Luciferian type of a notion, and we don't really agree with that in Hermetics. We do believe that man can merge with his holy guardian angel or his holy daemon and become a son of God, but to become a God oneself, no, we don't necessarily agree with apotheosis, but if you mean theosis, yes. So, all right, let's do the last article here. I'm surprised it took us to an hour. All All right, let's do the last article here. All right, so this one says the search for extraterrestrial life, UFOs, in our future. And this is from Forbes. This is Forbes magazine, which is a little interesting because Forbes magazine is a finance magazine. So it's a finance publication. These are the guys that do the wealth, lists, and who's the wealthiest person in the world, who's the wealthiest celebrities, who's the wealthiest musicians and actors, and heirs and royals and tech companies, who's the wealthiest under 30, who's the wealthiest under 40, who's the wealthiest woman, who's the wealthiest self-made, who's the wealthiest not self-made, who's the wealthiest family office, all this other. So it's interesting that they have this. But yes, the search for extraterrestrial life, UFOs, and our future. This is the oldest article that I have for our news segment today. This is from about a month ago, September 4th, 2022, a day before my birthday. It says, the question of whether or not we are alone in the universe has been pondered throughout human history. Ancient Greek philosophers such as Epicurus argued that there is an infinite number of worlds in the universe that exist. An extensive line of philosophers, writers, and scientists have debated the topic over the centuries. Back in 1994, astronomer and author Carl Sagan, we all know Carl Sagan, of Cornell University, authored an article in Scientific American that called for the search for extraterrestrial life. He noted that the Earth remains the only inhabited world known so far, but scientists in their research are finding that the universe abounds with the chemistry of life. Almost 3 decades later, Carl Sagan's insights on the abundance of chemistry of life, from Carl Sagan's insights on the abundance of chemistry of life, we are at the doorway of a new discovery in our new technological era to prove and find that extraterrestrial life may exist, and also that it may be plentiful. So, this is to the New Agers. If the Galactic Federation existed, or if the Arcturian Defense Council or the Brotherhood of Light of the Interdimensional Galactic Unification, people, whatever, if they really existed, wouldn't it make sense to contact, the people who are trying to contact them? Scientists who've been trying to contact them for decades. Wouldn't it make sense to let them know that you're out there? Not some 26-year-old yoga studio owner who has 12,000 followers. Not that person. It would be wise to, maybe let someone who, has a nice reach, like scientists and scientific publications, like NASA, people who have a reach. It would be beneficial to let them know that you exist. Not someone like me. I don't have a reach. So someone like me, would not be able to get the word out. So, yeah. All right, let me see here. There are other events bringing light to the possibilities of life elsewhere too. Recently, scientists discovered an exoplanet ocean world called TOI 1452b. That just sounds crazy. Just 100 light years from Earth. But see, why do we give other worlds weird? Why is Earth okay? So the planets in our solar system: Earth, Jupiter, Mars, Saturn. But in another TOI 415, why can't it just be called, Sutor or Fringlam? Why does it have to be TOI 1452b? Huh? Why does it have to be reduced to some sort of a futuristic computer model? Why can't you just give it a regular name? But whatever. A paper on the discovery says that the entire planet is covered by a thick layer of water, and that it's located far enough from its star to possibly support life. But see, wouldn't that just be it sounds like the kind of life they're looking for is life similar to ours. Life where we need oxygen to breathe, and we can't be too close to the sun or too far from the sun because it'd be too cold. What if life on other planets doesn't operate like life on Earth? I mean, life on Earth sometimes doesn't operate like life on Earth. Bugs and insects, like every other living and breathing thing, has a pair of lungs, right? Except insects. Insects don't have lungs. They don't breathe like we do, right? So I mean, if something on Earth can, and that's living and moving around, and would need to exert energy, and usually you need a heart and lungs to be able to exert energy. There are things on Earth that don't have that. So if that's possible, it wouldn't be too far-fetched to believe that things off Earth could operate differently than things on Earth. So it sounds like they're trying to look for life that resembles life on Earth. But what if that would be the wrong approach? What if you should just look for life in general? Now, of course, you would say, well, where would you start? I mean, we would have to start with how life on Earth looks. Okay, but we haven't found that yet. So why don't we start looking at other avenues of what could constitute life, rather than what do they say? There needs to be a water source. There needs to be like X amount of oxygen per carbon dioxide, and all this other ratio. What if that is fine for humans and life on Earth, but life on TOI 1456b, you I don't know, you survive on noxious fumes. I don't know, but it just sounds like they're looking for human type of life. Um, oh wait, actually, this paragraph might actually get into that. Hold on. Wait a second. Okay, so it does look like they do have measures looking for other signs of life. Like they have a project aimed at listening for signals of other intelligent life. The SETI, which is the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, has been active for several years, analyzing signals from outer space of intelligent sourcing. So that's cool. And then they have a spin-off of SETI called METI, which instead of the search for, it's messaging. So they're trying to see if they transmit a message out, will something send something back? So they are looking for other signs of life. Um, but it does seem like they are, spending a lot of time and money looking for um, life forms can produce detectable indicators, including the presence of substantial amounts of oxygen, smaller amounts of methane, and a variety of other chemicals. Um, Yeah, so yeah, it looks like they're trying to find like human type life, and I think that's the wrong way to go about it. But I'm not a scientist, so what do I know? But anyway, um, so yeah, that's the last article there. Um, for the alternative news. So I hope you guys liked that. If so, we can continue with this sort of segment in future. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how often. I'll have to see how often I can find these sorts of articles. I thought about doing something like this in the past, but like I could never, find like recent articles. Like if I were to go right now and search like paranormal news or new age news, I'll find a bunch of sites that have them, but they'll be from like 2016 and 2018. I don't want to give you guys that. Like this article is the oldest article that I gave. Like this is from a month ago. All the other articles were from either today or the last 5 days. So I want to try to give something recent and up to date rather than, talking about something that was discovered or talked about in 2018. Um, but hopefully you guys liked it. And if so, we can do this in future um, live streams. All right, let's see here. A site to get some of these books that are in Latin in English? Well, you would have to tell me the title. What's a book that's in Latin that you're looking to get in English? what is specific about Hermetics that you feel aligned with rather than any other system? The fact that it allows me to merge my Christian upbringing with it, while still being openly esoteric, and also it provides a direct path to theosis. I don't have to guess. I don't have to, learn any sort of mystical this or that. It offers me a direct path to get back to God. Now I will have to learn how to navigate it, but just the path itself is not obscured. I mean, even like it is in Kabbalah, while the path back to um, uh, 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 Ein Sof, I guess, is seems to be laid out. Exactly how to walk that path, how to walk the tree, is not so easy. Whereas Hermetics makes it pretty simple. So specifically the Nobel Prize in Physics, quantum physics. Oh, so not Benjamin Booyah Bernanke. Okay, sorry. He was the only person of note that I heard of recently, that got a. I think it was like today or yesterday. I heard that he got his Nobel Prize, or he was up for a prize or something like that. I didn't really read because I don't really care about Nobel Prizes for economics, so I didn't really read the article. But aliens have basement dwelling trolls too. That's the Galactic Federation contacting yo-yos. I'm so sorry I just joined very late. So is it just spirits, angels, gods, and goddesses, but no aliens? No, never said that there were no aliens. I do believe that life exists outside of this planet. I just don't think that they're contacting humans via telepathy or channeling or anything like that. And especially the people who don't have a real following. None of these new age influencers have any real following that would really get the message out to the masses. Like if people actually study how marketing and conversions work, they'll see that just because you have a million followers, that doesn't mean you get a million views. And I'm sure people subconsciously know that, but do you really like when you're going into conversation about this stuff, do you take that into account? Most people don't. They see you have a million followers and therefore you must, you must get the views. And that's not the case. I mean, look at conversion rates. Someone who has a million followers, the average influencer with a million followers would not be able to get even 10% of their follower base to convert. And by convert, I mean to buy something, especially buying something that's not of that influencer's own making or doing. You might have an easier time convincing maybe 10%, and I don't even think that, of your audience to buy something that you made. But if you're advertising something that someone else made, convincing your followers to buy it or to believe it or to watch it is going to be slim to none. I mean, look at go through your find whoever your favorite influencer is on this app and go to their page and look at their follower count and then go look at their most popular video, and that didn't go super viral, and look at the views. And so for someone who has 300,000 followers, it'll have 16,000 views, and it's like, huh? Because the conversion doesn't. So you would think a super intelligent race would know that. You would think a super intelligent group of beings would know that. And so they would go after the people who have a real following. Like I'm talking the, Charlie D'Amelios and the Kabi LeMays and the Kardashians and the Paul brothers and those types of people who have tens of hundreds of millions of followers, because their conversions, if you have 100 million followers, your conversion is going to be in the millions. Whereas if you have a million followers, your conversion is, you'll be lucky if it's in the high tens of thousands. So it just I do believe in extraterrestrial life. I just don't believe that they're contacting anybody on Earth, in 0.2 seconds of meditation and, fake telepathy. So we could only arise in this environment, so aliens would similarly be determined by the conditions of whatever place they're from. The messages they've sent out have been aimed specifically at nowhere. Oh, you mean for the METI? Well, yeah, I mean, can you? Well, I don't know. This says A spin-off of the SETI project called METI is focused on designing and transmitting messages to possible life-bearing planets. METI project scientists recently transmitted a signal to a nearby star called Lutein star GJ273. So it looks like they sent it somewhere specific. So it looks like they did send it to a specific. They sent a scientific and a mathematical tutorial, as well as 33 short musical compositions by artists in the sonar community. So yeah, they sent it to Lutein star GJ273. Hopefully someone sent something back. Maybe a thank you note would be nice. Finding a system that navigates this world effectively is a trick I've seen. Finding a system that navigates this world effectively is a trick I've seen demonologers connect. Interesting. So you think so when you say demonologers, like, do you mean like just people who study demonology, or do you mean demonolator, the people who worship demons? I'm not sure what you mean by that. And if you mean demonology, in the sense that we know it here in the West, is a Christian invention. So that would denote that Christianity would be the correct religion. So do you mean demonology or do you mean demonolatry? One creator who died, who was a practitioner, who is now a daemon or divine intelligence. One creator died who was a practitioner, who is now a divine intelligence. So do you mean like a I don't know, like a Buddha type of a character or something like that? Or like a Moses type character? I have a hard time believing they became divine, but they could be contacted through necromancy. I'm looking for the exact name of the cult. Oh, okay. Yeah. Please do let us know. But yeah, I think that is that's it for the news stuff. So hopefully you guys liked it. I enjoyed it. I think I'll incorporate that into my future lives. VK Jahan is a creator. You mean VK Jahanam? This is the second time in the last couple of days I've been hearing his name. Do you mean VK Jahanam? The contemporary occult author, I guess you want to say. I mean, I don't know if he's written any like featured like full length books, but is that who you mean? Yeah, him. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not aware of any cults or anything of him, but I'm not really I'm not really a fan of his work, so I don't really study his stuff. Bro, I just saw a circular craft flying low over my field. Am pissed because my phone cam is shit. I'm sorry. It seems like everybody has camera issues all of a sudden. All of a sudden iPhone 13s turn into Motorola Razrs all of a sudden. I don't get it. People have an amazing camera when they're catching a car accident, or when they're catching a shark attack, or a fight at school. God knows if there's a fight at school, that your camera is you're taking movie quality clips of the fight at school, or at your local mall, or at the football game, whatever. Oh my God! But a cop assaults a black man. You have God's camera at that time. But the moment an alien spaceship comes out of somewhere, or you're in the woods with your friends and you see a Bigfoot, the camera turns into a Motorola Razr, and all of a sudden nobody has And nobody has an iPhone 13 or no one has a Samsung, Galaxy S22 Plus or anything like that. Nobody has any of that stuff all of a sudden. All of a sudden, it's all Motorola Razors and Blackberries. It's like, huh? I don't get it. I don't get it. It's the crazy. But I'm supposed to just take your word and not. I mean, obviously you're joking, but I'm just supposed to take your word for it that you saw, this cryptid or this alien spaceship. It's like, no, bro. Like, you sent me a clear, high definition video of the car accident that you witnessed, but you can't. But the spaceship that hovered over your house and abducted your dog, you didn't get any. You didn't get nothing. It looks like a bad movie from the 1950s, like that. Like, come on. So 4K on them fights for real. Yeah, I know. It's the craziest thing. I kept going out of focus and it was going slow as fuck and had no noise. I did like this for the part I caught. Thank you. You're welcome. No problem. Thank you. He posts videos on how to connect with Hecate or any other spirit of God easily. Well, I don't know if I would agree with that. I don't believe that you can connect to any deity or any God easily. There are some that have specific protocols and specific methods that they require for you to contact them. And no one can give me any sort of reason why they would make an exception for you and not for their own adherents. There's no logical, there's just no logical reason why, the practitioner that's actually giving me offerings or sacrifice or worship and veneration, that would be the person that I would want to make exceptions for and things like that. So if there was anyone that I would let contact me easily and quickly, it would be an actual practitioner, an actual devotee of me, not a random who just contacted me out of nowhere. That would be the person I would make work for it. But that's the logical response, of course. I can't see, for example, some of the Kimbanda spirits. I can't see them making Kimbanda initiates go through the rigmarole and the protocol to contact them, but some random who read, V.K. Jahanam's book can just do whatever they want and they don't care and they'll still listen. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So I'm just not a fan of V.K. Jahanam and his ilk, people like him. So it's hard to shoot at night unless you have a mirrorless camera. Oh, well, I guess that sucks. It depends on the type of connection. You'd never get evocation results easily, though. What do you mean? What do you mean on the type of connection? You should check him out. I'd say he's one of the biggest occult creators. I know who he is. I'm just not a fan of his work. I don't believe that you can just contact any deity you want. There are certain cultures and cults and paths that have rules and protocols. And what he's saying is that just because he wants to, without any foundation, just because he wants, that he can break the rules and that the spirits will listen. Why would the spirits make rules for their own group of people, but anyone outside of that group doesn't have to? Like, that wouldn't make it. If there was anyone who you would make go through the long drawn out process of contacting you, it would be the people who don't follow you. The people who are in your club, the people who are in your group should be the people who get the easiest access. Wouldn't that make the most sense? The people who work for the company can easily contact the bosses and the higher ups, but the people outside can't. Right? Or they can, but it'll take a lot longer. Think about your cell phone company or your Wi-Fi company. Chances are, if you worked for them or you knew someone who worked for them, you'd get a lot quicker service, and you'd know all the tricks to get to someone. If you have an issue with your service, you'd know all the tricks and tips to be able to get someone to fix your stuff over if you didn't have a friend or you yourself or a family member didn't work there. So why would the spiritual world be any different? I don't believe that, that V.K. Jahanam can show me how to contact Papa Legba without going through the proper protocols of contacting Papa Legba. So Yeah, that's my issue. It's insane how UFOs have gone from crazy conspiracy theories to acknowledged by the government. Well, it depends on what you say, acknowledge, and what you consider a UFO, because the government is changing terms and changing titles. They're no longer UFOs, now they're UAPs. So the government is acknowledging UAPs, not necessarily UFOs. So I don't know, and I think that's on purpose. I think they're playing a little game, and it's done on purpose. But he has a lot of info up too. All his sigils and ends he gets from himself, can't even cite anything worth mentioning. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't always necessarily have to be a bad thing. UPG isn't necessarily a bad thing if you can provide foundation for it. If you can give, if you can cite some sort of a foundation for why your UPG is valid, then, we can go from there and, determining if it's, asinine or not. But yeah, I just, I can't get behind people who make those sorts of claims that you can, I can show you how to contact any spirit or show you how to use a backdoor into any magical system. That's why I have an issue with Coedding and his, spider and the green butterfly. I'll show you a backdoor into voodoo, and there is no backdoor into voodoo. Why would, if there was a backdoor into voodoo, the people who would do it are the people who practice voodoo. They would be the ones using the back doors, and the people who would have to go through proper protocols are the outsiders. But it's actually backwards. So yeah, I don't. But that's okay if you do. I mean, you don't have to, defend your likes and dislikes. To me, if you like him and you get results with his stuff, that's great. Oh, excuse me. I mean, like feeling a presence, like how you do in the LBRP or something. Oh, okay. Maybe. Do you think aliens are so advanced that they've long left religion, superstition, and magic behind? Not if they can't even understand basic marketing. No. If these are the same aliens that decide to use 26-year-old yoga students who have only a few thousand followers to get the message out, those aliens, no, they wouldn't be paid, because they don't even have a basic grasp on marketing. You want me to believe that you can travel interdimensionally, but you don't know the basics of marketing? That doesn't make any sense to me. That, I mean, even if you didn't go to school for marketing, or you don't, it's logic that you would go for the person or the people with the biggest reach, the broadest reach. You want a message to humanity, right? Go to the people who can reach humanity. So no, if those are the same aliens and those are the same, then no, that doesn't equal out. If you can interdimensionally travel, but you don't know, that the best people to get your message out are the people who has the most reach, there's an imbalance there. So no, I would not think that you would be smart enough to also be beyond religion. So yeah, and see, that's a hole in their little in their little in their little worldview. But if the aliens did exist and they um, aren't contacting people like I think, and then yes, and they can still interdimensionally travel and all that stuff, then yes, they would be more advanced. But not these aliens, not these ones that everyone else is talking about, not or not the Galactic Federation and all these that are easily channeled. They obviously are not intelligent. Um, so, and like I love how people, mainly within the New Age, and the paranormal community, they'll say things like, "How arrogant of you to think that like we're the only like beings. Like how human is that to think that we're so important, that and we're so powerful, that we're the only being out there. How arrogant of you to think that you're special enough, that out of the billions of planets that science has proven is out there, not only did they choose our little insignificant planet, but they chose you. How arrogant of you to think that you're the prophet for the Galactic Federation, or you're the one to get the message out. It's not arrogant to think that, and I don't think that we're the only beings out there, but that's not arrogance. That's just lack of knowledge of what else is out there. But it is arrogance to think that not only did they choose Earth, but they chose you. That's arrogance. So, interesting. It's very interesting how these people think. Sorry, I meant if aliens themselves have abandoned religion and superstition because they're so advanced. If they are advanced, I would say yes, they've abandoned religion in the sense of it's either this way or hell. Like, it's either this way or no way. I think they've gotten around that. I don't think spirituality is going anywhere. I don't think, I actually think the further away it looks like we get from spirituality, the closer we actually get spirituality. Because I think what a lot of people mistake for spirituality is actually religion. So I would say that if the aliens did exist, that they would be beyond religion, meaning it's this way or eternal damnation or whatever. But I don't believe that they would be beyond spirituality, because I think that as religion dies down, spirituality grows. And we're seeing that now. I mean, people are leaving Christianity, so religiosity is dying, but spirituality is not. Spirituality is growing. I think that they would leave behind religion, but not spirituality. I think the further we go down this technological thing, the closer, people will want to get to being back and close to nature and things like that. They're so stuck on someone being a prophet and coming back to change the world instead of contributing to a solution. Exactly. And they want us to sit in this mental masturbation, this circle jerk of not doing anything, but thinking that we're doing something. You're not raising the vibration isn't doing anything. Like, they're all like, oh, we all have to raise the vibration so the world. How do you do that? That's not doing anything. Oh, well, you just have to step in your power and exist in your. What does that mean? Can you give me practical instructions on stepping in my power? You can't. Oh, don't let people walk all over you. That's not a spiritual thing. That's a practical advice for everyday life. That's not spiritual. Don't let people walk all over you. That's not stepping in your power. That's not a spiritual thing. Like, I don't know any ancient culture that had as one of their spiritual axioms, don't let people walk all over you. Like, no, you shouldn't let people walk all over you, but that's not a spiritual thing. Like, it's ridiculous. So do you think Catholicism has spirituality? Yeah, of course. There are spiritual currents in every religion, but the organized part is religion. Yes, exactly. You probably want to take a look at like esoteric Christianity to see the spiritual aspects of Christianity, and also take a look into esoteric Judaism. So like Kabbalah, Hayoth, Hikalot, things like that. What about ancient aliens and the Anunnaki? Supposedly they built these ancient megastructures. I don't agree with that. No, I don't believe that we were seated here and, Earth is a soul. No, I don't agree with that. I think that the Anunnaki and all of that is just the Sumerians' version of the creations. It's no different than, believing that God's, talked to himself and said, let us make man in our own image, and took 7 days and sent out the Enochian angels to create the world. It's no different than any of that. I just think that that's the Sumerians' creation story. And I don't think that actually happened. I just think that people are looking for a new Christianity. They don't like the Christian like that's dying out. So we need a new creation story to fixate on and to harp on. And they pick that one because it seems to be the most ancient. And, it's the earliest record of any sort of civilization we have. So that must be what happened. That must be the right way. I don't see it that way. I just see it as just another creation story, but people fixate on it for some reason. And I feel like it's because they're looking for something to replace Christianity subconsciously. I'm not saying that most people are doing this consciously. I think subconsciously they're looking for something to replace the religion of their parents and their ancestors. And this seems to resonate with the most amount of people. So I feel like Islam and Judaism have more established and ancient esotericism than Christianity. They do. Well, I don't know about Islam. I doubt that, because both Islam and Christianity are derivatives of Judaism, which itself is a derivative of Canaanite religion. Well, I can't say that. That's not fair, because they kind of existed at the same time. It's more fair to say Christianity is a mixture of derivation from Judaism and Canaanite religion, along with some Hellenic stuff and all that other stuff. But Judaism certainly has way more established and ancient esotericism than Christianity. Islam comes from the same roots, so I can't say if that has any more than Christianity. I don't really study Islamic stuff, but I feel like Christianity might have more. But also that's because a lot of Islamic esoteric and mystical stuff is not available in English. You have to speak Arabic to know a lot of it. There is some that is in English, but for the most part, it's in Arabic. But yes, there's certainly a lot in Judaism. There's a lot, and you can spend an entire lifetime studying it and wouldn't even have cracked the surface. Sufism and Kabbalah, I can't think of similar ancient traditions in Christianity. Well, it depends on what you mean by ancient. If you mean like prior to like the modern day church, I would say like first and second century church, or Orthodox Christianity. They're very esoteric. They have a lot of mysticism within their ranks and their beliefs. But it depends on what you mean by ancient, because if we're talking about before the church, we have like the Essenes and things like that. It just depends on what you mean by ancient. But yeah, I don't really study Sufism or any Islamic stuff. But again, a lot of that's because there's not much available in English. Most of it's in Arabic. So Nineveh Shadrach is doing his best to change that, but he's one person, and there's a lot in Arab that we can learn from our Arab brothers when it comes to Abrahamism. I mean, they did give us our astrological stuff, so without the Agayitayim, we wouldn't have any of our astrological magic or planetary hours and days and stuff like that. So, all right, it's 10:30. I've been on here for an hour and a half. Almost all of that hour was taken up by the news segment with only 5 articles. So that's really good that I can take up an hour with just the 5 articles and my little commentary here and there. So I think I'm going to incorporate the alternative news and my commentary on it in future live streams. Seems like you guys liked it, but I think I'm going to hop off here. Been on here for about an hour and a half. So how old is Kabbalah really? I don't know how old it is. It depends on who you like, the type of scholar that you talk to. I've talked to scholars who say it's completely Jewish. The Jews had it first. There's no, you can't argue that. Then I've had some people who say, well, there's some evidence that the Jews didn't have it first. The Greeks had it first, and then the Jews perfected it. But, going back to the Jewish people, they say that, or the scholars for the Jews, they say, no, the Jews had it first, and then they kind of stopped. And then the Greeks took it over, and then the Jews were like, no, we kind of want it back. And then they took it back, sort of, I don't know. I don't know how old it is. It's old, old, like pre-First Temple, old. So I don't know how old it is really. I don't have any dates, but yeah, it's certainly up there. The Essenes, fascinating. Yes, they are fascinating. That's what Jesus was part of. But yes, I I think I'm gonna call this was a good discussion. Thank you very much. I like the new articles. Good, good. I'm glad. I'm glad. All right, good. So yes, I think I'll incorporate that into my future lives. Great live. Well, thank you very much, UOULs. Thank you. I'm guessing that's for UL Santana. UL's Jewel Santana. I I I. But anyway, yes, I'm gonna go. Thank you all for being here. And thank you for the likes. Thank you for the follows. Thank you for the questions. It was great. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Seek the mysteries. Peace.